Okay, we have another video on a very helpful piece of gear that will eventually become essential for you. These are external hard drives. So storage is unfortunately a finite thing. I don't care if it's your phone, if it's your computer, eventually you're gonna run out of storage because video files, photos, they all take up space. And usually the better your camera is, the more space those video files are gonna take up. So eventually, as you fill up your built-in storage, you're going to need to purchase external hard drives like these. Now, there are two different types of external hard drives that I wanna quickly run through for you. Up first, we have SSD or solid state drives like this Samsung T7 Shield. And then we have HDDs or hard disk drives. This is a Western Digital drive. It's pretty huge. I think this one's 16 terabytes. Now, both of these have their own pros and cons. SSDs are faster. So when you store footage on these drives, it's gonna be easier for you to edit this footage with your computer because the speed at which this drive can essentially talk with your computer and transmit footage back and forth, it's a lot faster. They're also significantly more stable. So if I were to drop this or just leave it on a bookshelf for years and years, because it's a solid state drive, there are no moving parts in here. They're typically much more stable and will last you longer. So those are the pros. The con is the fact that these are significantly more expensive than hard disk drives. The main difference in the way that these actually work, solid state, no moving parts. A hard disk drive or HDD has an actual spinning disk inside, and that is like part of the process that stores and writes and reads all this data, but it's a literal spinning disk in there. That means there's a big opportunity for something like this to break. If you have one of these, when you plug it into your computer, you'll hear it literally like speed up, and that's that moving part in there. So the negative aspect of this is that it is a little more fragile. If you're moving around with this or just leaving them on a bookshelf for years, they do have a tendency to kind of crash, and you could potentially lose all of the videos and other data that you stored on them. There are recovery services which are hit or miss depending on how the drive actually crashed, but that's something you have to keep in mind with these drives. They're also slower than SSDs. It's usually not the bottleneck in a person's editing workflow, but if you are on a computer that's relatively strong and has a lot of RAM and processing power, and you're still getting a ton of lag, if the footage that you're editing is being stored on an external drive and it's an HDD, there's a good chance that this drive could be the bottleneck slowing down your editing process and giving you lag. And the reason behind that is because you have to remember that your computer is essentially referencing wherever that file is stored whenever you edit that clip. You can kind of think of it like a road connecting your computer to your drive. With an HDD, it's like a regular speed limit, maybe 40, 50 mile per hour road. With an SSD, it's like a highway. You can drive 75, 80 miles per hour. So the faster the road or the read and write speed in terms of drives, the faster you'll be able to edit your content. So a little less stable and a little slower. Those are the negative aspects. The positive aspect is that they are significantly less expensive. You can get a terabyte, which is 1,000 gigabytes of data storage for significantly less. And you can get these drives all the way up to 16, 32 terabytes. So before we dive into specific brand recommendations, I want to walk you through the workflow that most people implement when they essentially get started as a content creator. What I do is I have a computer that has an SSD internal storage drive built in. That's going to be the drive that I store footage and files that I'm actively editing. I have a lot of things like sound effects, editing templates that I downloaded from contentcreatortemplates.com, just a lot of effects that I use across all my edits. Because I know I'm going to be using those all the time, I just keep them stored on my computer. That way they're always with me. Now, once that storage gets filled up, any other active files that I'm using in edits get stored on SSD drives. These are like highways, so that editing speed is going to be much faster. Now, as soon as I'm done with a project, let's say I just finished a YouTube video that I know I'm never going to touch again, or it was a client project it's now done and I'm probably never going to reference it again. I then take that footage that's stored on one of these SSD drives and I transfer it to a backup or archival HDD drive. Because these are so much cheaper, I can buy tons of these and not really have to worry about literally breaking my bank to buy more of these. So that's essentially the flow. It's like a waterfall where the active projects are SSD and then slowly they pour over and get stored in HDD drives. But nonetheless, now you know what external drives are and the differences between the two types. As far as brand recommendations go, I will say for SSDs, the industry standard is the Samsung T7 Shield. This is a really high quality drive at a pretty decent price as far as SSD drives are concerned. I love these for traveling, for active projects that I'm editing, All in all, great device. And for reference, this is a 2 terabyte option. It's gonna run you $112. That's 2,000 gigabytes. In the past, I've also used Glyph SSD drives. These claim to be more stable and even faster for editors, but I will say they're like double the price and I don't think they're really worth it. And then as far as HDDs go, I typically use WD or Western Digital drives. Links to all this stuff can be found in the description. And I will say, be wary of reading the reviews of certain drives online because no matter how good a brand is, having a drive fail on you or crash, it's basically inevitable. It's like building a sandcastle and just expecting it to be there forever. Naturally, these things degrade over time and everyone will experience a drive crash at least once in their content creation journey. So when you're reading these reviews, sometimes you'll see that odd 1-star review and they're like, wow, I had 5 of these and my 6th one crashed. I hate this brand. And you just want to take it all with a grain of salt. There are lots of really good reputable drive companies out there and they all crash. It's just an inevitability that we kind of need to deal with as content creators. But there you have it. That is a quick overview of external hard drives, the brands I recommend, and also the workflow that I implement as I edit my content. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one.